I don't get my phone, but hello guys. It is officially summer and summer break, which means you guys are going to hear my kids in the background because it's just how life is. So, if you hear them, sorry. Nothing else I can do, okay? But it is time to talk about my June TBR. And this time, I kind of just, had my kids, my older two kids, pick out books to read. And I let them each pick, I think, roughly 3. And then I picked one myself. So we're going to go over them and talk briefly about what I know of them and my thoughts, feelings on it. So let's get ready to go over it. So again, there's 7 books, 3 from my oldest, 3 from my middle, 1 from me. And the very first one that got picked was Glint. This is book 2 in the Plated Prisoner series. The first one was Guild, I think it's called. And I read that one roughly probably a year ago and stuff. And it's about this girl who is King Midas's prized possession because she is gold plated, I guess you would say. And King Midas, if you know the story, is basically someone who can just touch something and it'll turn to gold. And so she is the one living thing that he has that is gold. And so she is the prized possession of his. And he takes over another kingdom and is in the process of getting everything he wants moved over to that kingdom, including the girl. And I think some pirates take over and like ambush it or something, right? They ambush the journey of her going over there. She gets taken as prisoner along with some of his other harlots, I think they were called, or something. Certain word. But they basically get taken over by pirates. They're trying to figure out how to survive, how to get back to where they want to go. And then the pirate ship gets, I think, taken over by someone else and stuff. And yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of book 1, but I am curious about where the story's going because there's like 5 or 6 of these books, and a lot of people love them. I think near the end is when they get kind of like repetitive, is what people said. But I just want to see where this second one is going to go after they got the pirate ship like ambushed by other people. Another kingdom, I think it was. And so I'm curious about that. Like I said, I don't know how it'll be. This will probably be, depending on how this book goes, will determine if I want to continue this series and not. So we will see how that goes. Book 2. My throat is already tired. I've tried to do this a few times. So excuse me if I have to clear my throat or if I sound raspy. But book 2 is The Entanglement of Rival Wizards. This is Sarah Rosh book. I kind of read the last couple of Sarah Rosh books, which were Nightmare Before Christmas and Go Luck Yourself, which is part of the Royals and Romance series. This is a separate book, I think, before those. I'm not quite sure, but it is a separate book, and I really liked her writing and humor and storytelling in the Royals and Romance series. So I'm curious to see how this one is going to go. All I know is it says enemies, lovers, and critically screwed on the front. And then I think it says on the back that he's half fae and stuff. And that he is a human who is the first in his family to pick college over the military. And like I said, I don't know how it goes. Oh, it says they're also both magus, I don't know how that word's going to be pronounced, research grant finalists. And so they're both competing to get this grant or this like research fund for whatever reason. And so that's going to be interesting, I think. Like I said, I don't know how it'll go, if it's going to be similar or different, obviously, than the Royals and Romance, because I like that one for the humor and the snarky remarks and all that. and it is mail-in mail, so I'm okay with that. So I can't wait to read that and see what it's about. Next one is An Arcane Study of Stars. This one, I think my oldest daughter picked this one. I'm not 100% sure who picked what books, but I have a feeling she did for this one because she saw it at the library and I got it because she saw it and I said, ooh, it does look interesting. But basically, it's a dark academia fantasy. And basically, there's a girl who shouldn't be there. She was rejected by her dream occult university, and now she's being forced to marry an old man to repay her father's debts. But then there's a guy who says, no, you have celestial magic that is like super rare, and I want to make a bargain with you to basically give her an entrance into the school of her dreams to help him get his freedom. And she accepts. And then she learns about the mystery of this nightmare named Dorian and his prison of stars. And basically, there is a guy who's standing in her way at the university named Cassius. So maybe a bit of a love triangle, I think. But it sounds really interesting. It looks interesting. It is a little thicker than I would like, but you know, it's not as bad as Manacled or Alchemized, which I just finished reading Alchemized, so I'm okay with this. And like I said, it does sound interesting and all that. So next is Twisted Love. This is my book. Most of those are library books, but this one is my book. This is Anna Wong, her books. This is book 1 in the Twisted series. I've heard mixed reviews about this, but I really liked her King of Sin series so far. Again, I have 2 books out of the 6 that I haven't read. So I've read a good chunk already of her books for that series. So I'm really curious about this one, and it seems to be about Alex and Ava, and basically he is having to basically take care of his best friend's sister, which is Ava, and she's having it where she's struggling with the fact that she doesn't remember her past, her childhood, but she's such a happy-go-lucky person, it seems to say. And so it says, theirs is a love that was never supposed to happen, but when it does, it unleashes secrets that could destroy them both and everything they hold dear. So I am really kind of curious to read this. Like I said, it's been a while, so I really do need to read this to see if I do even want to continue with the series or not. And yeah, it'll be nice change of pace because this is one of the only romances. Most of these are going to be like fantasy books. So this is one of the few romance books, so it might be a nice little palette cleanser if I need it. So the next one that we have is called Nevernight. And it says right here, it is book 1. And I read on the back that it's a part of a trilogy for an epic fantasy from a New York Times bestselling author named Jay Kristoff, who I've never read anything of his. So I'm curious. But the front cover looked really interesting, and I feel like I've seen it be on like YouTube or Instagram, but I've never seen it be talked about. So I'm kind of glad that whichever one of my kids picked this did, even though I picked it from the library. So their choices are kind of limited into still getting what I want. But basically it says that in a world where the sun is almost never set, a woman gains entry into a school for infamous assassins seeking vengeance against the powers that destroyed her family. She is the daughter of an executed traitor and is barely able to escape her father's failed rebellion with her life. And now she is alone and friendless as she wanders the city built from the bones of a dead god, hunted by the Senate and its thugs. But her gift for speaking to the shadows leads her to the hearth of a retired killer in a future she never imagined. Now she's apprenticed to the deadliest flock of assassins in the entire Republic, the Red Church, and deadly trials await her within the church's halls, blades and poisons, treachery and death. If she survives an initiation, she'll be inducted into the chosen of the Lady of Blessed Murder, and one step closer to the only thing she desires, revenge. So that sounds kind of cool and interesting. And I mean, I don't know. It does. I don't know what to say. So I'm curious about this. I'm interested. And it is, again, a part of a trilogy. So if I really like this one, I can see if they got book 2 and 3. I don't know. But next book, this one is my pick. All of these so far have been my daughter's picks. But this one is my pick for the month. And that is The Book Witch by Meg Schaefer. This is one that I've talked about a couple of times on my channel so far. One is talking about it being a popular spring book release from Goodreads, I believe it was, which is where I learned about it. I didn't even know about this book until I did that and looked into that and saw it, and I was like, that sounds interesting. Because basically there's a book witch and she's in charge of making sure nothing happens in the fictitious worlds of the books that she's in charge of. So she's allowed to like kind of travel into these books and make sure things are taken care of and that the story is set right. But she is also not allowed to stay in the stories, obviously, because that can cause problems. And apparently there is a detective that she really likes in a story series that she really likes, and she's not allowed to be seen with him ever again, or else she gets expelled from her little book witch cult, I think it was called, or something like her cult. But I guess her grandpa goes missing and she needs help finding him, so she takes the risk and asks for his help, and they go on that journey of figuring out what happened. So I really am curious about this. The last book I read by Meg Schaefer was The Wishing Game, which I really loved that game. It had a lot of magical realism into the story, even though it wasn't really magical, but like it had riddles and it made you feel like hopeful and stuff. So with this being kind of more of a little bit more fantasy world, I'm curious how that will be written by her. So we will see. And then the last book that was picked by one of my daughters is Mad Mabel. This one has been around all over so far lately. I've seen tons of people talk about it. It was one of my book of the month books. I just haven't gotten a chance to read it because I tend to put them off a little bit. But my daughter picked it. Basically, there's an elderly woman who is just enjoying her life in her suburb drinking tea when one of her neighbors dies. But the problem is that she wasn't always just a sweet old lady. She was known as Australia's youngest murderer, I think it was. Convicted murderer. But now she's just relaxing, trying to deal with that. But there's a nosy little 7-year-old girl and someone else who just doesn't trust Mabel, or Elsie, I think is her name. But her real name is Mabel. And basically she's just trying to, deal with life, and she's trying to deal with the fact that there might be some people who are going to come looking at her, questioning her, suspecting her because of her past. So she has to basically go in and solve this and figure out what really happened so that her story is a-okay. And like I said, that sounds interesting, which is why I picked it. I just didn't read it right away because I was reading other books. So there's that. But those are the 7 books that I have for June for the summer, start of summer. So we'll see how that goes. But let me know if there are any upcoming books for this month of June that you are interested in, if you've read any of these books. And make sure you like and subscribe to see what my thoughts and feelings are on these books and if I finish my TBR, because I have a tendency to do a-okay, but not perfect. So come find out for that by liking and subscribing. Comment if you want to tell me some thoughts and things. And I will see you guys next week with another vlog. Have a great summer. Bye.